license and registration and explain to me how someone like you affords a brand new Lamborghini.
The same way anyone does, Sheriff. I work for a living.
Work doing what exactly? Cars like this don't come from honest work, in my experience.
Your experience is about to get a lot more...
The flashing red and blue lights hit the Lamborghini like a warning shot. A car like that doesn't just get pulled over. So ask yourself, what really made Sheriff Daniel Hayes so sure? The matte black Lamborghini slows to a controlled stop on the empty highway just outside town. Engine purring, headlights cutting through the dark. Everything about it screams power, money, and attention. Sheriff Hayes, 52, steps out of his cruiser, already tense, hand hovering near his weapon like he's expecting trouble before he's even seen the driver. That's your first red flag. He approaches slowly, circles the vehicle once, twice, his eyes narrow. Then he sees her, Maya Brooks, 34, calm, composed, sitting behind the wheel like she belongs there. No panic, no confusion, just quiet control. And for some reason, that bothers him. "Step out of the vehicle," Hayes orders, his tone already sharp. No greeting, no explanation, just authority. Maya doesn't move right away. She turns her head slightly, looking at him through the tinted glass. "What's the issue, officer?" Simple question, but Hayes doesn't answer it. Instead, he steps closer, voice rising just enough to turn this into something bigger than it needs to be. "This vehicle was reported stolen," he says. "Now step out slowly." Pause. Here's where things get strange. Maya doesn't argue, doesn't panic, doesn't even defend herself. She just opens the door and steps out. Graceful, measured, like she's done this before. "You're saying it's stolen?" she asks calmly. "I'm saying you're in possession of stolen property," Hayes snaps back. Backup arrives within seconds, too fast, like he was expecting this to escalate. Deputies step out, hands already near their belts. The energy shifts instantly, from routine stop to full-blown takedown. Now think about this. Why escalate so quickly? Maya raises her hand slightly, not out of fear, but cooperation. And then it happens. Hayes grabs her wrist, harder than necessary, and spins her toward the hood. "You people always think you can get away with it," he mutters. It's quiet, but not quiet enough. Maya freezes, not in fear, but in realization. Something just crossed a line. "Careful," she says softly, but Hayes doesn't listen. The cuffs click. Tight. Final. "You're under arrest for grand theft auto," Hayes announces loudly, making sure everyone hears it. But Maya, she doesn't resist, doesn't fight, doesn't plead. Instead, she leans slightly closer and says something that completely changes the tone of this entire situation. "You just made a mistake you can't fix." Hayes scoffs, laughs it off. To him, this is just another arrest, another case closed. But if that's true, then why does Maya look like she's already 10 steps ahead? And more importantly, why didn't she try to stop him? Before we continue with this video, please like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for updates. The silence in the holding room feels intentional. Not empty, not tense in the usual way. Controlled. Maya Brooks sits upright on the metal bench, her hands now free, her posture unchanged. No pacing, no panic, no desperate glances toward the door like most people in her position. Instead, she waits, and that alone should tell you something is off. Outside, Sheriff Hayes is already writing the story in his head and on paper. "Suspect apprehended in possession of stolen luxury vehicle," he says out loud while pacing, dictating more to himself than anyone else. "Non-cooperative during questioning." Deputy Carla Ruiz, 29, sits at the desk typing it up, but her fingers slow down. "Non-cooperative?" she repeats carefully. "She answered your questions." Hayes barely looks at her. "Not directly." Ruiz hesitates. That's not the same thing. But she doesn't push, not yet. Instead, she pulls up the body cam footage. Just a quick glance, she tells herself, just to double check. But the more she watches, the more something doesn't sit right. Maya's tone, steady, calm. Her movements, deliberate, not evasive. And that line, "You're making a mistake you can't fix." Ruiz leans back slightly. That didn't sound like a bluff. That sounded like a warning. Meanwhile, Hayes is digging deeper, running the Lamborghini's plates again, calling dispatch, pushing for confirmation. "Run it through the private alert system again," he snaps. "I want everything." Moments later, dispatch responds. "Vehicle was flagged by a third-party security contractor," the voice says over the radio. Ruiz looks up. "Not the owner?" Hayes frowns. "Doesn't matter. A flag is a flag." But it does matter, and Ruiz knows it. Back in the holding room, Maya finally breaks her silence. Not to argue, not to demand anything. She simply looks up at the camera in the corner and says, calm as ever, "I'd like to make a call." No urgency, no fear, just timing. Ruiz is the one who opens the door a minute later. She steps inside slowly, studying Maya like she's trying to solve a puzzle. "You'll get your call," Ruiz says, "but help me understand something first." Maya meets her eyes instantly. "Do you trust your instincts, Deputy?" That question lands harder than expected. Ruiz hesitates. "I try to." Maya nods slightly. "Then listen to them." A beat. "Because whatever you think is happening right now," she continues quietly, "it's not the full picture." Ruiz feels that unease growing stronger. Outside, Sheriff Hayes suddenly straightens up as another call comes through. His expression shifts. "They confirmed it," he announces. "The vehicle is tied to an active investigation." Ruiz turns. "Whose investigation?" But Hayes doesn't answer right away, because here's the truth. He doesn't know. And instead of slowing down, he doubles down. He grabs the paperwork and heads straight for booking. He orders, "Process her." Inside the room, Maya exhales slowly, almost like she expected this exact move. As Ruiz steps back and the door begins to close, Maya says one last thing. "By the time you figure this out," she pauses, "it's going to be too late." Ruiz freezes for a second, because now the question isn't if something is wrong, it's how bad it really is. Two black SUVs pull into the station lot. No sirens, no rush, but somehow it feels urgent. Inside, everything is still moving like normal. Keyboards clicking, radios buzzing, paperwork stacking up. But Ruiz notices it first. Something shifts in the air. You ever feel that moment when something big is about to happen, but no one said it out loud yet? "Sheriff," says Ruiz slowly, glancing toward the front windows. "We've got company." Hayes barely looks up. "We're always busy." But then the front doors open, and everything changes. Three people walk in, sharp suits, steady pace, eyes locked on one thing only. They don't hesitate, don't ask, don't wait to be acknowledged. They move like they already belong there. At the front is Agent Marcus Cole, 41, calm, focused, the kind of presence that doesn't need to raise its voice to take control of a room. "We're here for a detainee," Cole says, holding up credentials, quickly, deliberately, not for permission, for confirmation.
Hayes steps forward, already defensive. "You'll need to file Maya Brooks." The name cuts through the room. Everything goes quiet. Ruiz feels her stomach drop. Hayes stiffens, but he recovers fast. Too fast. "She's in custody," he says firmly. "Grand theft auto." Cole doesn't blink. "No," he replies. "She's not." A pause. And just like that, the control Hayes thought he had starts slipping. "With all due respect," Hayes pushes back, "we caught her in a stolen vehicle." Cole takes one step closer. "With all due respect," he says, voice lower now, sharper, "you interfered with a federal operation." Let that sink in. Federal operation. Ruiz's heart starts pounding. "What operation?" Hayes demands, but there's something new in his voice now. Uncertainty. Cole studies him for a long second, like he's measuring how much damage has already been done. Then he signals to the agent behind him. A file hits the desk. Photos spill out, surveillance images, faces, license plates, locations circled in red. Hayes flips through them quickly. "These people, they're suspects," he says. "They're targets," Cole corrects. Another beat. "And that Lamborghini," Cole continues, "it's part of an active sting." Ruiz's eyes widen. Her mind flashes back to Maya's words, "You're making a mistake you can't fix." "And Maya?" Ruiz asks quietly, almost afraid of the answer. Cole doesn't hesitate this time. She's the lead agent. Everything stops. No movement, no sound. Just that one sentence echoing in the room. Inside the holding room, Maya sits exactly where she was, still calm, still composed, like she knew this moment was coming all along. Back in the office, Hayes exhales slowly, trying to regain control, but it's slipping fast. "You're telling me," he starts, "I arrested a federal agent?" Cole leans in slightly. "I'm telling you," he says, "you may have just compromised months of work. Now ask yourself this. If that operation is blown, what does that mean for everyone involved? Because whatever happens next, it's not going to stay contained inside this station." The holding room door swings open fast, not cautious, not routine, urgent. Maya doesn't flinch. She looks up once and immediately knows it's begun. Agent Marcus Cole steps inside, his calm now edged with pressure. "We need to move, right now." Maya rises smoothly, like she was waiting for those exact words. "How bad?" Cole exhales once. "That tells you everything. Bad enough that we don't have time to explain it twice." Outside the room, Sheriff Hayes stands frozen, watching the situation unravel in real time. The authority he walked in with earlier, it's gone, replaced by something else. Doubt. "What's going on?" Hayes demands, stepping forward. "Someone needs to explain this, now." Maya turns to face him fully. This is the first time she's really looked at him since the arrest. "You flagged the vehicle," she says, her voice calm but direct. "That triggered a failsafe." Hayes frowns. "What does that even mean?" Cole answers this time. "It means the people we were tracking are watching everything. Police scanners, alerts, movement patterns." A beat. "The moment that Lamborghini got flagged as stolen," he continues, "they knew something changed." Ruiz steps closer, her voice low. "So they ran?" Maya shakes her head slightly. "No," she says, "they adapted. And somehow, that's worse. Because running means panic. Adapting means planning." Cole nods. "We've already lost visual on 2 primary targets. Their phones just went dark 10 minutes ago." Hayes runs a hand over his face, the weight finally crashing down on him. Months of work. Gone? Or worse, redirected. "What do you need?" Hayes asks suddenly, his tone completely different now. No ego, no control, just urgency. Maya studies him for a moment. This is the turning point. "Full access," she says. "Your systems, your radios, your people." A pause. "And no more assumptions." That one lands. Hard. Hayes nods quickly. "You have it. But the damage isn't just operational. It's personal." Ruiz steps forward, unable to hold it in anymore. "Why didn't you just tell us who you were?" she asks. It's a fair question, and Maya answers without hesitation. "Because the moment I do," she says, "everything changes." A beat. "And sometimes," she adds, "you need to see how people act before that happens." Her eyes flick to Hayes. Message received. Outside, the station explodes into motion. Radios crackle, units mobilize, directions are shouted. The quiet building from earlier is gone. Now it's a command center, but it's reactive, not proactive. And that's the problem. Maya grabs her jacket, already moving towards the exit with Cole. But just before she steps out, she stops,
turns back, looks directly at Hayes. "Next time," she says quietly, "slow down long enough to understand what you're looking at. No anger, no shouting, just truth." Then she walks out, leaving behind a station full of consequences and one sheriff who now has to face something much bigger than a bad arrest. Because the real question isn't just what he did, it's what that mistake is about to cost everyone. Everything that follows moves fast, but not fast enough to undo what already happened. Within the first hour, the operation shifts into damage control. Maya and her team reroute, pulling every resource they can to recover the targets that slipped through the cracks. Traffic cams, financial pings, old surveillance points. They start rebuilding the case in real time. And here's the truth. The Lamborghini was never just a car. It was bait, a controlled asset used to draw out a network involved in high-end vehicle theft, money laundering, and interstate trafficking. Maya had been deep undercover for weeks, earning trust, mapping connections, getting closer to identifying the leaders behind it all. That traffic stop, it wasn't just a mistake, it exposed the operation. When Hayes flagged the vehicle and made the arrest, the suspects monitoring police channels immediately knew something was wrong. The system they were tracking had been disturbed. That's why their phones went dark. That's why 2 of the primary targets vanished within minutes. But not everything was lost. Over the next 3 weeks, Maya and her team worked non-stop. They followed the fragments, tiny mistakes the suspects made while trying to disappear. A license plate caught on a toll camera, a transaction flagged across state lines. Piece by piece, they rebuilt the case. And eventually, they got them. Not cleanly, not easily, but they got them. Multiple arrests were made. The operation closed. But it came at a cost. Back at the station, the consequences were unavoidable. An internal investigation was launched into Sheriff Hayes almost immediately, not just for interfering, but for how he handled the stop. The body cam footage told the full story, the tone, the escalation, the comment he thought no one would focus on. It all mattered. Deputy Ruiz gave her statement. She wasn't resisting, she said clearly. She wasn't a threat, but he treated her like she was. That testimony, combined with the footage, led to a decision that changed everything. Hayes was suspended, later officially removed from duty. Not because he made a simple mistake, but because of the judgment behind it, the assumptions, the bias. For Hayes, the fallout was personal and public. His reputation collapsed almost overnight. Community trust eroded. Every decision he'd made before was now under scrutiny. And the hardest part? He couldn't argue with any of it, because for the first time, he saw it clearly. Maya, on the other hand, stood in the center of a different outcome. When the case finally closed, she sat in her office, quiet, composed, but finally allowing herself a breath. Not relief, not satisfaction, something deeper. Closure. She picks up her phone and sends a single message. "Trust your instincts. You were right. M." Across town, Ruiz reads it, and this time, she doesn't hesitate to believe it. In the end, everything changed. Not just for the case, not just for the department, but for the people inside it. Because sometimes, the biggest consequences don't come from what you don't know, they come from what you assume. And this time, that assumption cost more than anyone expected.